Rice has just set a Super Bowl record with 12 catches. He's in motion. Montana. Touchdown, John Taylor.
You're tuned into Niner Faithful Radio, the show hosted for the faithful, by the faithful.
Talofa Faithful, how is everybody doing? It is CaptNiner here with your Niner Faithful Radio Week in Review show, where we just take a look at some of the headlines and stuff like that here on a Friday night. Hopefully everybody has a good Faithful Friday, and we just talk about what's going on, and discuss a little bit of what we're going to be playing against this. Not even on Sunday; it's going to be Monday night. Against the Colts. So we have an extra day of just sitting around not doing anything before our game on Sunday night. So you know what? Because it just looks like it's just going to be me tonight, let's go ahead and get right into it. Give me just a second. Let me pull this up. Bam. All right. As you can see, yes, we are going to be taking on the Indianapolis Colts, where we got, we have got Brock Purdy. He is the new school of, players in the NFL. And then I didn't put old school because the old school guys I would consider somebody like the Joe Flaccos and maybe even someone like Mahomes, guys who have been in the league for a few years. Kirk Cousins, is up there like that. I put oldest school simply because they had to go so far back. They had to pull a man out of retirement. That is right. Old man, Grandpa Phillip Rivers will be leading the Colts into the however far they decide to go this season. For the rest of the season, it looks like. Like I said, he retired in 2020. Didn't play any football. There was the opportunity that had we made it to the Super Bowl, had we beat the Eagles in 2022, that he would have been the quarterback that we probably would have called up to play for us. So there is that link with the 49ers and Phillip Rivers, but we don't know. Or actually, we do know because he was sitting in on some of the 49ers meetings and whatnot. So he was in the building. I guess they had him creeping in the background in like the Zoom meetings and stuff like that, so he can get some of the offense down and everything like that. Phillip Rivers is a good quarterback. A little long in the tooth. But let's get into this. And so the first slide that we have today. The best news, I don't give a damn if we win a Super Bowl or not this year. This is the best news that we could have gotten this year. Greg Papa, the voice of the San Francisco 49ers, you guys have heard him a million times say, touchdown, San Francisco. Been with the team since 2018 after he left the Raiders. He was the Raiders a long time play-by-play, but now he's doing ours. Is gone well enough doing his leukemia battle that he is going to be back for the last two games. Not sure why he wouldn't be able to do this game, but I'm sure they're just, probably because it's Monday Night Football. That's why he won't be doing it. Sorry, my brother was texting me. So that's why he's probably not going to be able to do this game. But he is now healthy enough. His white blood cells and all that kind of stuff has gotten up to a point to where he is able to leave the self-quarantine in his house. Apparently, he's getting some energy back to himself and everything else. And like I said, when it comes to this team and as far as how this season goes, let's be honest. This is probably the best thing. Obviously, the next thing would be like a Super Bowl with Fred coming back and all that. But, like I said, obviously Greg looks a little bit different, has not been allowed to shave just in case that he would cut himself. So Greg got himself a little bit of a beard. His voice, I've heard him on Lombardi has been on his show a couple of times. It's a little bit rougher, so maybe he doesn't, maybe he won't be able to do the long exaggerated, touchdown San Francisco type things that he has been come to known for over the this, because he's the voice of this generation's Niners. But we'll see. Like I said, he'll be back for the Bears and the Seahawks. And then he said, depending on how he feels, and with obviously checking in with his doctors and everything, he will look forward to maybe even doing some playoff games. And so, speaking of playoffs, let's go back to this one. This is as of last night, and of course, last night we had the epic game between the Seahawks and the Rams, where the Rams had a 16-point lead going into the fourth quarter. They blew it, went into overtime. The Rams scored, and the Seahawks scored on the backside, and it went for 2 and 1. In a game that had some of the craziest things going off, there was a 2-point conversion that Charbonnet just kind of grabbed, and then they said he got the 2-point conversion. Sam Darnold was his usual Sam Darnold self, throwing for interceptions, probably almost had 2 more. The Rams offense had over 500 yards of offense, no turnovers, and still lost the game. And it's not like it was a great game, defensively for the Seahawks or the Rams or anybody. It's just they blew the opportunity. Speaking of, one of the touchdowns that the Rams had in the first quarter was taken back because a guy blocked a guy. One of the Rams guard, the right guard blocked a man so far deep into the end zone that they called him for illegal lineman down the field. It's like, wait a minute. He blocked the guy 2 yards deep into the end zone. Then the defensive lineman was able to disengage with him, so he kind of stumbled forward for another couple of feet, and then threw a flag. How is that a lineman downfield when he was literally pushing a man into the end zone? So we'll see. It was just some of the refs things. There was the whole thing with Puka Nacua. He is on his villain arc right now, hanging out with some of the shadiest jackasses of the internet influential world. Puka Nacua is doing some things right now, talking all sorts of shit about the refs, which he was fined today, like $20,000. I mean, come on, Puka. You're like the first time. It's like the first time I've not liked a Polynesian player in the NFL. Of course, being half Polynesian, I've always liked my Polynesian players. But Nacua is slowly like, do I not like Puka Nacua? Yeah. All right, so that's enough of that part. All right, some of the big stories of the week is obviously, even though right now Seattle is the number 1 seed, and even if the Seattle wins its next 2 games, let's see. We got Christine Haywood. Hey, guys, nice to be back. Go Niners. Thank you very much. It's definitely good to be back. So all we wanted was the fact that we wanted this team to be able to control their own destiny. Well, we got that. If we want the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs, we have it. All we have to do is we have to beat the Colts, beat the Bears, beat the Seahawks. Not saying that is necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do, but we do control our own destiny. No matter what else happens in the NFL, no matter who beats who or whatever else, we control our own destiny. Now, right now, according to the playoffs, and let's just go back one slide real quick, the only 2 teams that have technically clinched right now, and this is going into week 16. There was no teams that clinched. The latest in the history of the NFL that going into week 16 that no teams had clinched into the playoffs yet. But like I said, so Seattle and the Rams are clinched for playoff spots. Nobody else has clinched a playoff spot. So that means that the Green Bay Packers, the Chicago Bears, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Tampa Bay Bucks, and us right now, are not in the playoffs. Again, the only 2 teams guaranteed to be in the playoffs as it sits right now is Seattle and Los Angeles. So obviously Seattle being number 1, being they've got their 12-3, and the Rams are at 11-4, and then everything else will fall into place here in the next 3 weeks. So again, like I said, we'll see probably a little bit of shakeup with a whole lot of this, especially like I said, we're playing Chicago next week. Chicago and Green Bay are probably going to flip depending on if Green Bay. I said Chicago and Green Bay. Green Bay, and Chicago will flip seed positions if the Green Bay beats Chicago come Sunday. Also, if the Lions lose, the 49ers automatically are in the playoffs. That would not, of course, that means we don't know what seed that we are at, but that would guarantee us somewhere in the dance. Now, going back to this this slide, one of the other issues is that obviously, and we'll get into this in a little bit here in a second, is injuries. Obviously, Ricky Pearsall is out. He is aggravated his PCL, I think is what it is. Can't remember off the top of my head. But he's aggravated something in his leg. And obviously, that's probably because of the illegal hip drop tackle that was, I want to say it was the first drive in last week's game. But again, so Ricky is not, right now, Ricky is not practicing. He is doing everything he can. But here's the question. The Lions lose on Sunday. What is up, Mr. Kenny? Yeah, it's the greatest script ever. This is exactly what we wanted. That means that we would never, if we went the number one seed, we went out, we are home all the way through, including the Super Bowl. Amazon needed at least one good rating game this year. I absolutely hate Thursday night games, but I have to admit, this year's slate of Thursday night games has been really freaking good. And I hate saying that because I absolutely abhor Thursday night games. I wish they'd go away like the plague, but it's just they're not going to go away. The NFL makes too much money. But back to Ricky. So the Lions lose to the Steelers. Ray, my older brother, please let the Steelers beat the Lions. So do we play Ricky? That is my question. Ricky obviously has issues with staying healthy. That said, when Ricky's on the field and Ricky's playing, Ricky is by far the best wideout that we have on this team. He has an immaculate hookup with Brock. They see each other. They talk to each other a lot. They just see the game the same way. He's great at, simply put, this offense runs so much better when Ricky's on the field. Now, that also means that we need him down the stretch of this doing, because obviously, we've got to play the Colts this way. The Colts have a pretty good defense. The Bears have a pretty good defense. And, obviously, Seattle also with a good defense. We want that number one seed. We have to win all 3 games, period. So, do we push Ricky's luck with him getting injured, or do we stick him, and play him, or do we try to rest him for a week or two, knowing that we are going to be in the playoffs one way or the other? And honestly, I see both sides of the argument. Like, I don't know what I would do. Sunday morning, if I wake up and, or Sunday evening, by the time everything is said and done, and you ask me, okay, the 49ers are in the playoff, or the Rams lost. What are you doing with Ricky? I don't know. At that point, I'm just taking a coin out and tossing it, because I want Ricky to play, because we want that number one seed. But at the same time, we are in the playoffs. Do we need to start resting some of these guys, especially like Ricky, who has a history of not being able to stay healthy for the playoff run? So it's kind of like a back and forth kind of a thing. So they are escorting us to the Super Bowl in Santa Clara. Yeah, not San Francisco. Excuse me. Yes, everybody will remind you, we are not in San Francisco. All right, let me pull that back over there. Gotta click it. All right, some of the transactions that we had, not a whole lot going on. Earlier this week, we released a defensive back, Isaiah Bolden, from the practice squad. He signed with us on the 9th, so he was barely with us for a week. And then we re-signed Adrian Martinez to the practice squad. He was let go earlier in the month. Had a little stint on the Jets practice squad. He was available, and so we picked him back up. I do not know what that means as far as the status, as far as Curtis Warwick goes. And for those that don't know, Curtis Warwick is another 7th-round draft pick that we opened up his 20-day practice window. I don't expect to see him coming to play this year. But going into next season, that's where it's going to get interesting. Why? Because Mac Jones at this point, I know we have Mac Jones signed through next year. Mac Jones' value is never going to be any higher than it will be the next season. In fact, it's only going to go down. No matter what he does next year, unless he comes out and does, the crazy thing he did this year with, going 5-1 and playing lights out like he did. The only thing it's barely going to get any better than it is now. We got to trade McCorkle in the offseason. You got to strike with the iron's hot. It's like trading stocks. You go when it's at its highest before it starts dropping. We have to trade McCorkle in the offseason. That said, we could also just be signing Adrian Martinez back simply because we've got a couple of guys coming up in Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold, who are actually pretty nimble on their feet and can move. So maybe we're just bringing him back simply to just run around the field, and play that because that's not McCormick's style. That's not or McCormick. Is that Mac Jones' style? That is not Curtis Rourke's style. I can't say everybody's name. Hold on. All right. That is not neither of their styles. That said, Adrian Martinez is more of that mobile quarterback, and he could possibly give us a look at, for the practice squad guys to get a better look at what, like Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold and their mobility looks like going forward. Excuse me, all of a sudden I got like this itch in my throat. And that's all that we've got as far as transactions are concerned. Now we go to the 49ers practice report for today. We had everybody practicing. The only people who did not practice today was Nick Martin. Nick Martin, starting to get a little bit worried about him for a little bit. I mean, this is now entering week 3 in the concussion protocol. Now, that said, don't forget, usually on Fridays, a lot of these guys will be named out. That will not come out and be official until tomorrow. So maybe tomorrow we'll see that, he's actually cleared percussion protocols and he's good to go for the game. But as of right now, both Nick Martin and Ricky Pearsall were off on a side field working out today. So they did do some stuff, but they were working out by themselves. It looks like some of the guys that we were worrying about, like a Spencer Burford, Jordan Elliott, those guys. The other person who was limited in practice today was also Sam Okawanu, who I'm expecting to be back full time, and Renardo Green is with a neck injury, and obviously you want to be careful with neck injuries. Also had the blue do not touch jersey on him. For those that don't know the jersey, if you wear a blue jersey on this team, you do not touch them. That means that they are going to run through drills. They're going to do a bunch of stuff. But if you touch them, I'm not sure exactly what Shanahan would do to you. But you should know off the top of your head that blue jerseys people do not get touched. As far as Yetur Gross-Matos goes, we shall see. I'm not sure if he's going to be completely back yet. But as much as I like YJM has missed 16 of 32 games, a.k.a. he misses half the amount of time that he gets to play on this since he's been here. But when he plays, he's so good. He's the defensive lineman version of Ricky Pearsall. When he's on that defensive line, he plays amazing. He stuffs the run better than anybody else that we have on this team right now. But, again, if he plays Sunday, he might make it to halftime. A lot of people were looking at Javon Houdin, or Udin, or whatever his name is, from the Dolphins that got released and cleared waiver wires to be brought in. I'm actually not against it. Why? Because at least with him, he's healthy. We don't know with Yetur Gross-Matos. We never know from one day to the next if he's going to be healthy. Hell, we don't even know one play if he's going to be healthy. And that's the unfortunate thing about it. Like I said, it sucks to say that about these guys. I don't mean any sort of disrespect to them personally. As far as like with Ricky goes, I really like Ricky. Like I said, I like the story of him. Obviously, he was getting shot, coming back, all that. I mean, who does not love that story? But him, YJM, they are constantly hurt. Your best ability is your availability. Neither of those two guys have great availability. So, as far as the Colts go, they had now it says here that DeForest Buckner was a full participant, but he's still on IR. So let me rephrase that. Originally, he was listed that he did not participate today, but he's still on IR. So he is, if you look, this is off of RotoWire. It's not off the NFL.com one, so it's not the official one, but this one came out first. But so DeForest Buckner did practice, even though if you look on the official one, it's probably going to say that he did not practice, but he is still technically on IR. They don't have to list him for anything. Their wide receiver, Josh Downs, was a full participant. Sauce Gardner, probably not going to play. And then Richard Ryman also, they're all on their offense. They've got 2 offensive linemen who probably won't be playing. But that said, they still have an amazing offense. All right, let's look at their coaching staff. Their coaching staff is led by Shane Steichen, 23-25 record so far. Harshly, under 500 because, they started 7-1 and now they're 7-8, 7-9, whatever. They're against either way, they've lost the last 5 games. Otherwise they were headed in the right direction. Daniel Jones, of all people, had this team going in the right direction. Their offensive coordinator is Jim Bob Cooter, who has got the absolute best name in the NFL by far. I don't know. There's something about that name is just awesome. Pretty good offensive coordinator, but like I said, he's known for his name. Their DC is Lou Amano, who obviously a lot of us wanted after he was let go by Cincinnati. Of course, Cincinnati lets go an amazing defensive coordinator. But then again, what does Cincinnati do that makes any sort of sense ever? That franchise is, let's just say, if Joe Burrows ever leaves that franchise, and then, like I said, T. Higgins and Martin, all those guys, I mean, they're 3 guys away from being, the Raiders or the Jets. That's how close Cincinnati is to being there. But as far as Lou Amano, like I said, again, a really good defense. His defense is playing pretty much everything's in the top half of the NFL as far as defensive stats and everything. They switch sets multiple. They're going to go jump from cover 1 to cover 2, man, zone, this, that. Lou Amano has people jumping around, but he also coaches them to where they're really good at all of it. They're kind of like what we do. We jump around a little bit between different kinds of sets defensively, but they're so much better at it with him. As far as the offense, look, we know this offense is going through. This offense is going to go through running back Jonathan Taylor. Right now, he's got like almost 1,400 yards. That was 3 games ago. He's averaging like 115 yards a game. I look at his points per game, 6. Total offensive yards, they are 8th. Passing yards, 9th. That's obviously come down a little bit with Phillip Rivers playing the last game. Rushing yards, they're 6th at 128. Time of possession is only 24th, though. So it means they're scoring pretty quickly for the most part. But yeah, like I said, obviously Grandpa Phillip Rivers out there last week went like 11 of 23. Had a very, honestly, not bad for a guy who came off the couch for 5 years. I got to say that. Look, Phillip Rivers is not going to last few weeks, Taylor has been a shell of himself. I think he's just getting beat up. The loss of Daniel Jones has left this team and just there's more focused. Say what you want about Daniel Jones. I never thought he was that good of a quarterback with the Giants, but for whatever reason, things are just clicking for him, Indianapolis. And without having to worry about, Daniel Jones in the passing game, why, everybody's just focusing on Jonathan Taylor. And yes, he had, like Kenny's saying, only has broken 10 tackles and only had 1 play over 15 yards, but they're also probably stacking the box. I'd like to see what the stat is for how much of stacking the box they're doing pre and after Daniel Jones and everything like that. And even that said, they still have one of the best offensive lines, especially Quentin Nelson. God, could you imagine this team if we had Quentin Nelson on this team? Tell me if Phillip Rivers is not sore as fuck right now. No, he's probably sore at 44 years old or 45. No, yeah, 45. He just had his birthday last week, going through everything. He probably is sore as fuck. But hear me out, though. He's probably, yes, sore, but you can also take a few pills and a shot and you'll feel better. He's also into week 2 of everything. Now, I know that, we are favored by almost a touchdown to win this game. I think it's a touchdown. Well, it's 5.5 points. And by all means, most people have us winning this game, especially with, like I said, just because of Phillip Rivers being there and their passing attack being pretty ineffective right now. Excuse me. But tell me this would not be the absolute best thing for the NFL. And hear me out here, Kenny, where you're saying that. Would this not be the perfect thing for everybody? Because we know out of all the premier franchises, especially, it's probably between us and the Cowboys, who's hated more. Like the Cowboys have been a joke. We have actually been good. We haven't won a Super Bowl, but we have been good the last, 6-7 years. Cowboys have been good, but they've also been a complete joke at the same time. But we've actually legitimately been good. How much does the NFL want Phillip Rivers to beat us in prime time? Primetime TV. Tell me that is not going to lead to some of the most absolute drama in the NFL if the 49ers, who are fighting for the number 1 seed in the NFC, get embarrassed on Monday Night Football to a man who is 45 years old and came off the couch the week before. And tell me it would not be a fun week for us if that happens. I'm sorry, it's any given Sunday for a lot of things, and I'm not saying that we could lose. In fact, I still think we're probably going to win this game. But God, would it not be the most 49er thing of all time for this shit to happen to us? To us in Monday Night Football. Of course, we're not playing these guys at 10 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon or a game where, or actually don't forget there's games on Saturday today, folks. There's games tomorrow now that college football season is over. But like I said, just there's something about this game being on Monday night that terrifies me. And I want to let you guys say what's up to Mr. Terradome. What is up, brother? How are you doing? If we don't stop Taylor, it will happen. It's possible. Like I said, there's just something about it that on Monday night really scares me. Like I said, my quote-unquote threat level right now is at like a DEFCON 4 for something stupid happening on Monday night. But if it was, like I said, 10 o'clock game Sunday, 10 o'clock game Saturday, even the afternoon games on Saturday or Sunday this week, I would not be as worried. I'd probably be at like DEFCON 2. Why? Because they still have Jonathan Taylor. They still have an amazing, offensive line. They still have got a really good defensive line. Any of that kind of stuff. Like I said, there's just something about the prime time part that just scares me. And that, like I said, would be the most 49er thing of all time. And God, the shit we would have to talk about. Will Rivers fall asleep at that time on Sunday? Well, the good thing for Rivers will sleep on Sunday is that we don't play on Sunday. We play Monday Night Football. It's all about the U versus Texas A&M. All right. I started off watching college football this year like pretty good, and then towards the end of the season, I just kind of fell off. I don't know why I just stopped it. So I'm like, I don't even know what bowl game is what. All right. And so next on the list, we are going to be talking about their defense. Their defense, points allowed, they are 12th. Total yards, they are 22nd. Passing yards, they are 31st. I can't even read my own thing here because I have to make it small. They are 31st in passing yards allowed. Rushing yards allowed, they are 6th. Sacks, they are 10th. And interceptions, they are 11th. So again, it's like they're kind of all over the place. Obviously, one of the guys that everybody's looking at on this defense is then I got to tell you guys, we got to let it go. We've got to let the fact that DeForest Buckner was traded go. It's getting a little sad. I feel like it's that ex-girlfriend that dumped us or that left us, and that we just haven't been able to move on with our life or anything like that. But we've got to let go of the whole DeForest Buckner thing. I want to say at this point he spent more time with the Colts than he has the Niners. But yeah, so again, we all know about DeForest Buckner. He's coming off, he's probably going to play. He is technically still on IR, but we'll find out tomorrow. Again, the list for people who are already going to be considered out for Monday has not come out tonight. Usually we get that list on Monday night, or it's going to be Friday night for Sunday games, but we're playing Monday night, so we won't get that till tomorrow. So Defoe is going to do his thing. Also roaming around on the defensive side of the game is going to be Latu Atu, defensive linebacker / defensive end. He's got 3 interceptions and is second on the team behind Buckner in sacks this year. So, another one of my Polynesian brothers, he's actually Tongan. He's Cameron Latu's younger brother, and he is an actual legit. It's funny, Cameron Latu's actually not doing too bad with the Eagles. He's actually, how is it that he learned how to freaking catch somehow when he went to the Eagles. But yeah, just like he said, Captain 97. Yep, my man right there on the other side. And then we got Franklin Jair, who to me is one of the best tackling machines in the game. I would love to see him on the Niners. Just stick him in the middle and watch him tackle everything. Nothing gets by that man. The last game the Colts have won was to the Falcons and Tennessee Titans. Yeah, I mean, like I said, their season has gone pretty much to shit since Daniel Jones. They went from being arguably, they were on the verge of being like the number 1 seed in the AFC to a complete collapse. But yeah, so their defense, like I said, so that's their defense. These guys are going to get at you. And then you also, they give up Sauce Gardner, who I don't think he's going to be playing this week. We'll find out again tomorrow on him for sure. Also, Mooney Ward has been shut down for the season. He is on his 3rd concussion. So, obviously the bad luck for Mooney Ward continues. You know, like I said, we know about his bad luck that he had here last couple of seasons as a 49er, and, you know, all that heartbreak and everything, but just, you know, it's followed him. The man just needs to take a break, stop playing football, go on vacation, and just hang out, man. Like I said, I like Mooney Ward. I've saw his stories, really good story with him and his family. I'm not saying he needs to hang it up, but I think he just needs to take a break from football. Just take a year off, let everything rest, focus on the family, something. Just because there's an air of like a black cloud over that family currently. Just go deal with that, man. We'll be back. I'm glad Kamatu couldn't catch a naked cold in Alaska. Yeah, one of the that was it. Like between him and Moody, when we drafted them, I think everybody's first reaction was, the fuck? Yeah. Yes, drop two. Good old drop two. I don't know if that was you that made that name up or if it was somebody else, Kenny, but, you know, good old Cam drop two. All right, when it comes to fantasy football, obviously you're going to start CMC. You're probably going to start Kittle. I don't understand why they have Jonathan Taylor at only 16 points, especially when our run defense is not of the greatest. I would have thought that would have been closer to 20. So I would be starting. I would definitely start Taylor. I think he's going to get more than just 16 points fantasy-wise. Pittman, I think, is going to do pretty good. And like I said, as far as the 49ers go, your automatic starts are going to be CMC and Kittle. And then I would put Brock Purdy as a low tier 1 starter for fantasy football. He is my starter pretty much every week when we don't have him. I have him and CJ Stroud, so I kind of go back and forth with him. And then we have some good old show, everybody. Welcome, East Coast Red and Gold Niners. That's probably, I shouldn't say it's probably, I know it's Jess there. What's up, Jess? How you doing? Thank you very much for showing up. And then situationally, you know what? You know, you could also throw in Pearsall or Jennings. Pearsall, we still don't know if he's going to play. So let's be honest, that 10 is probably going to be a 0 because I don't know if he's going to be playing. And like I said, we talked about this earlier in the show. If the Lions do lose to the Steelers, do we try and rest him and try and, you know, catch a little bit of a break, let him rest? Because it's like a little 50-50 thing. Yes, we definitely want to get that number 1 seed, which means we need to win the last 3 games. But remember, if the Lions lose, we are automatically in the playoffs. We have clinched our spot. And if there's nothing else, remember, we always say just get to the dance. What happens in the dance, just let that go. You know what I mean? Do we try and rest Pearsall up or do we push him? We'll see what happens with that. And then Jennings is kind of hit or miss when it comes to fantasy football. Jennings last week, 2 touchdowns. Great. How often is he going to come up with 2 touchdowns in a game? So, like I said, Jennings, actually this game with the defensive back issues that the Colts are having, might not be a bad idea to start Jennings in this game. All right, some of the betting stuff. My thing is blocked now. I can't even look at some of these websites anymore. I don't even know what the hell's going under. So I can't pull up my book or anything else. Obviously, I live in Washington State, and online betting is illegal. So the only thing I'm able to look up, the over-under is at 46.5 points. I'm going to take the under on that. I think it's going to be a closer than expected game, like 20-10, 25-14, something along those lines. But I will take the spread at the Niners winning at more than a touchdown, 5.5 this one. So I would take the under on the over-under, and then I would take the over on the spread. All right, and then the one part that I had forgotten about doing this year, and I don't know why I forgot about it, here are some of the Colts' more famous fans. Obviously, they have Rob Lowe, who, even though I've seen Rob Lowe in a bunch of different stuff, I question how much of a fan he actually is. Yes, Defoe, Sauce is still questionable, and Defoe is still on IR, but Defoe also was a full participant in practice today. But technically, because he's on IR, they don't have to, basically they can put whatever the fuck they want out there kind of thing. But no one's been considered out. In fact, we can go back and I'll show you. So on the Friday one, DeForest Buckner, full participant, but he's still technically on IR. He can become off IR any minute now. And then Sauce, also the same issue. But we also know more than likely Sauce is going to stay on there. It's just not 100%. So we'll see what happens with Sauce. More than likely, Sauce is not going to play, and more than likely, Defoe will be playing. But both of them are they did actually get some practice in today. So it's that weird thing where, especially with DeForest, he's technically still on the IR. But again, he could be pulled off the IR tomorrow morning and be listed as active. So that can go kind of back and forth with that one. Obviously, David Letterman, I know he's always been a big, huge Colts fan. Mike Epps, great comedian. For those that don't know, that is Corey Taylor, the lead singer for Slipknot. That is also a big fan of the Colts. Obviously, I couldn't find anything to confirm it, but apparently Dave Mustaine from Megadeth and Metallica, also a huge Colts fan. And let's be honest, the absolute biggest Colt fan and probably the biggest fan of like everything NFL related. For those that don't know, Pat McAfee, he just doesn't run. It's not just his show, but Pat McAfee started as a punter on there. Was probably, honestly, Pat McAfee was one of the few people who could punt, kick, throw, tackled, everything. Pat McAfee was a weapon. One of the few times you can actually say that, he ranks right up there with like Hester and all those guys that kick returns. But Pat McAfee could do everything. He kicked field goals. He punted. He could throw the ball. The man would lay people out on special teams. He was a football player who played special teams kind of thing, who was a kicker. Let's put it that way. But yeah, he is still a huge fan of the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, Pat could hit. If you don't believe me, just go onto YouTube and look up some Pat McAfee tackling. You will see some hits. Pat McAfee laid some motherfuckers out. But let's also not act like Pat McAfee's your tiny little 5'9" kicker that weighs 110 pounds. Pat McAfee's what, 6'2", 6'3"? Probably when he was playing days, probably about 190, 200, just solid. Because he was never, like I said, he's not a tiny man. Pat McAfee's a big dude. Pat McAfee could lay some people out. But he is actually still a huge part of the team, or still a huge fan of the team that drafted him and all that kind of stuff. So Pat McAfee loves himself some of the Indianapolis Colts. And, well, that's all I have got for you guys, folks, tonight. Thank you for showing up for the Weekend Review Show. If you guys don't know, I do put out TikToks every morning, the Captain and Coffee Show or Captain and Coffee Morning Report. You can check those out over on TikTok on my CaptNiner TikTok, and you won't see this fugly face because it's all animated into an anime type thing, and I just do it through there with a little AI, something a little different I've been working on. Just like I said, something different to look at. And then so we'll be looking at, there's probably nothing going to be coming out tomorrow, and then we will get started again on Sunday morning with see how some of this is going, and then obviously Monday morning we will get ready for game day. All right, everybody, y'all have a good kick-ass weekend. Enjoy your Friday night, and we will see you guys later. One love.